Check, check. Y'all let me know if the microphone's working. Good morning, everyone. Good Tuesday morning. It's a little cool here in Oklahoma City. Good morning, Professor. Thanks for the confirmation there. Nothing worse than getting the whole thing rolling and then realizing nobody can hear you. Hopefully Shaun joins us soon. I'm getting ready to make at least one video today, since he asked last week for me to make one covering my whole collection. I think I've got all my lighters here. Got a few ashtrays. Don't have all the ashtrays here, but have most of the local. But I do have, I'm still missing a couple of my, one of them that belonged to my grandmother. Good morning, Philip. I don't know. I do remember seeing communication from you, but I don't remember where it was at or if it was that recent. I think I missed it if it was on Sunday. Let me go take a look. I'm assuming you sent that to the bossman@dependableflame.com. I get so many emails that stuff gets easily lost over there in both of them. I don't clear out my email. I use it for, I use them both regularly, but most of the communication that comes to those emails is not dire. Yeah, no, I don't see an email, Phil. Going back here to, oh, wait a minute, what was? Well, back through the 3rd. It seems like we'd communicated somewhere else too, maybe in the Facebook Messenger, or maybe that was just comments of a video. I don't remember now. But I apologize for missing that. Good morning, Keith. Glad that you've joined us. Glad that all of you are here. It's a Tuesday voting day here in Oklahoma City. So sometime this afternoon I'm going to have to walk over and cast my vote. We'll see if Naphtha or Gnarly, can't remember who else we have locally here though. We have several Okies who join us. We'll find out if they're going out to vote today as well. Yeah, so I look back through March 1st and I don't see a... What's up, Naphtha? Glad that you've joined us. I think we missed you last week. Of course, I had missed the last, 3 or 4 weeks at least before that, so I'm not faulting you. The weather's been so nice around here the last few days, the last week really. We've had a few days where it was in the mid to high 70s. Thanks, Keith. I appreciate that. But today it's, I think, a high in the high 40s or low 50s. And that really seems like winter time has come back. Because it's really felt like it was solidly spring here for the last good bit. Trying to figure out a way to get this entire collection, which isn't that large, but I would like to be able to get it all in one frame for the video. But putting everything out, I kind of started arranging things the other day, and by the time that the majority of this container is unloaded, then it's really quite a struggle to get it all in that one frame. Oh yeah, Keith, how long ago was that? Park are pretty simple. My only complaint with the parks, because of the aluminum construction, it seems to me that there are times, and maybe it's the way that moisture, I don't know, maybe it somehow adheres to the aluminum or something more than it does other metals. I don't know. I'm not a scientist or anything like that. But I can tell you, I have come across more than just a few aluminum park lighters that I just gave up on trying to get the flint drilled out of them, because it was concreted in there, just like it was a diamond or something in there, like it was something that you just couldn't break. Naphtha says it's starting to feel like spring over there in Tulsa too. I hope y'all got it a little bit better than we do today. I didn't look at what the forecast was up there, but it's not going to be real spring-like here. Like I said, I'm going to walk over and vote here in a little bit, and if I'd really looked at the forecast, what it was supposed to be this afternoon, I might have planned to drive instead. Okay, that does seem familiar now, Phil. Your Corona flat. Are you talking about is that a flat ad lighter? Well, let's see, Phil. I really don't like. I really don't like taking that stuff in the mail. But the reasons you're telling me there that you want me to do it are the exact reasons why I would. So send me some pictures. Let's make sure that everything is going to be as easy as it should be. Yeah, you can send those to the email. I don't know what happened with the one. Let me check my spam folder. Yeah, no, there's nothing in the spam folder either. But anyway, get with me. If you're not in a big hurry, then we can probably figure something out. I just don't want to be stressed out about getting it back to you. Okay, Keith, you said just about a month ago. And Professor's Garage said you got snow there in northern Montana. Yeah, it's kind of weird to me. I assume that places in the northern regions all get snow. I don't know, maybe it's got more to do with the elevation. Does Montana stay covered with snow for the winter? They just said this past week on the news that the snow that New York City got here just like in the last week was the first snow of the year. Seems crazy to me. We've had snow here several times. And sometimes we don't even get snow. Anyway, I'd moved this over here because I was trying to share my plight of trying to get the entire collection, which isn't all that big. You know, some people got displays all over the walls and in cabinets and all that good stuff. So I'm at least fortunate that I don't have to try to. I've just got limited space here from where I'm making videos now. So anyway, that's going to be, I'll probably do a few. I wrote an article that I published on the dependableflame.com website yesterday about my collection. I kind of broke it up into, I think, about four categories. The Penguin Cygnus, Zippo, park lighters, and then my family themed lighters. So I may try to make the one overall video where I can hopefully get everything in it, but then make those 4 separate videos kind of detailing the contents of each. Good. I'm glad it's working good for you now, Keith. You don't think Park compare at all to Zippo as far as the quality? Okay, yeah, I feel. Send me some pictures. And it's we're talking about a petrol lighter, right? But really all that you need is just the mechanism reassembled. Park may not be quite to the, I don't know. It's 2 different systems. That sort of brute force, leaf spring design that keeps the lid shut on a Park isn't anywhere near as intricate as the cam system on a Zippo. But I mean, it's not like the Zippo system is all that. It's just, you know, a spring down underneath there keeping tension on it. So it's just 2 different kinds of springs. But I would agree you got more possibility to have damage done from a hinge on a Park, just because it's not like you've even got any kind of oil or anything to soften the abrasive nature of the way that stop on the lid forces its way down into the that leaf spring. Anyway, I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but I do think there's more possibility for those hinges to be damaged, even from just setting over time, even if they're not being used. I don't know, aluminum's kind of a different material to begin with. Most of those Park lighters, especially the later ones, were made of aluminum. What kind of Coca-Cola are you talking about, Keith? Is it like an emblem, or is it like a etched and painted type graphic? You say it's a 4-barrel hinge. Is it an older Park? The older Parks, now that case is aluminum, but the insert, I think that's some quality of steel. Definitely a heavier insert. And you can see it's got the tube type felt on the bottom, like the old Zippos did. I think this is actually a Storm King branded lighter. But the insert marked there along the front spine of the insert, Park Sherman, and then Storm King, at least on that side of the windscreen. I'm trying to remember if some of the later aluminum, like from the 1960s and on, if some of those were 4-barrel too. This table lighter, it's 5-barrel. And I've got some other Parks in there, but most of them now, most of the nice Parks that I did have that I considered as part of my collection, I've had those listed on eBay for a while. Those three with the nice etch and paint type graphics, the golfing scene, the oil-filled advertising, and then the, I can't remember what, Armstrong Molds Inc., which has like a strongman arm, man flexing his bicep. Is it like the Coke bottle emblem? Okay, interesting. That sort of gold anodized aluminum, gold tone anodized, whatever you call it. This is another, this table lighter is aluminum, but it contained an insert which is it's pretty fouled up, so I replaced that with the organic cotton. But this is a Springfield, Illinois insert. Which it's always cool to find the Park stuff that's marked Springfield, because then you know that it's the older. You see plenty of it with marked Murfreesboro. Some of the bottoms don't say either place. Some of them just say it's windproof, or seems like there's another saying or two. Ah, Coke glass emblem. I don't know if I remember seeing one of those. Coca-Cola stuff usually goes pretty high. I remember one time seeing a lot of Coca-Cola memorabilia on a particular estate sale website that I've bought a lot of stuff from or on over the years. And there was a Cygnus petrol lighter that was advertising Coca-Cola, and there were some other Coke advertising lighters. They just weren't Cygnuses. I don't remember what they were. But the Cygnus specifically had my attention, and I would have loved to own it, but man, the amount of money that all that Coca-Cola advertising went for was crazy. And that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes the advertising that you'll get on a lighter sort of overshadows the value of the lighter itself. Yeah, that's pretty common too, Keith, that the inserts, especially in the Murfreesboro era, um, those aluminum inserts a lot of times were not marked. I've found several lighters that weren't marked Park on the outside. They might have been marked Made in USA, or what's the one, Kim something, Kim National Kim Search, and the Vernon lighter. I've seen them all marked that way, and then have inserts inside that were marked Park Industries. But then I've also seen plenty that were marked Park on the case, but the insert wasn't. When you said, let me see if I can, what did I do with that? No. This is pretty cool item from my collection that y'all might remember. There was a video made on it a good while back. But I can't remember what you just said there, Keith. You said one is silver etched aluminum, the other is aluminum brass. Is this the style you're talking about when you said etched? I sort of think of this as Park's version of the Venetian, but you know, I'm not a real artistic guy. I don't know, maybe something very different about this design than the Venetian design. Anyway, these lighters, I think pretty much all of these of this style were from 1960 onward. They're all Murfreesboro lighters as far as I can remember. But this one, like I said, it didn't have any advertising, and on the case, what did I do with that? Oh, here we go. But I've got the box for it. I bought it. When I did the video, I put the website in there. It was a Shopify website that I bought it from. And take note, because I got a hold of the seller and let them know that, because they were listing it as just needing to add a flint and it would work, and it's not the case. The flint tube was obstructed by disintegrated concreted flint. Anyway, I got a hold of them and let them know so that they could update the listing, but the last time I checked, they still had not. So it has a solid foam fuel cell. The flint spring screw is plastic, but I did clear the tube in this one. And like I said, I think that's pretty cool. I've seen Zippos like that, and since then I've seen other Parks with advertising on the insert, but I don't dare put it back in there, because I don't think you could put it in and out of there too many times without sustaining some kind of damage to that printed advertising. So I think though that Shopify website, if I could find it again, I put it in the video like I said, but I think they were selling these for like $8 or something like that, and it looked like they had a whole bunch of them. So if you're interested in Ford advertising or just unusual Park advertising, you might give that a look. Was your box plastic like that, or was it the cardboard with the diagonal stripes type box, Keith? Huh. Yeah, I can't remember the colors. I know I've seen them with the gold diagonal bands across them, or gold tone. Okay, yeah, that sounds familiar too. Does it say Park Avenue on it? And I've had several that came with the cardboard type box as opposed to this plastic box. I don't have the cardboard box with me for this one. It's still over at the place in Mesta Park. But this is one of my favorite lighters. Brand new. Bought from one of my favorite sellers that I bought a lot of lighters from over the years. eBay seller named Lighter Source. His prices have gone up a little bit. Like his minimum is about $7 is where he starts the lighters, and I think his shipping and handling is now $4.50. So about the minimum you're going to get into a lighter from him would be $11.50. But he also combines shipping and handling for multiple purchases. And anyway, I think I paid, this is probably about the most exorbitant price I've ever paid for a vintage lighter that I wasn't going to turn around and make money off of. Just for something that I was adding to my collection. I don't think I've paid over $25 for any of the lots that I purchased that had penguin cygnus in them, unidentified, that then I turned around and made more money than what I'd paid for those and still got the cygnus out of it in return. But this lighter here, this ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Treasury Department Special Investigator badge with the public service or promotion, whatever you would call it, doctors agree moonshine kills. And like I said, I think I paid $30 plus the shipping. So I think I paid about $34 for this. Probably a little over a year ago when I bought it. But a really nice, it's all aluminum, Murfreesboro era. And you can see that, first of all, I don't even know if I remembered that happening, but you can see there that flint screw has broken. Interesting. I'm going to have to go back and watch the video and see if I was even aware of that before. I know that I cleared that flint tube. Or I think I did. Anyway, that's one of the dangers of handling as many lighters and making as many videos as I have is sometimes my attention's in the wrong place, and then I very easily forget what I might or might not have done to a particular lighter. So sometimes it's good that I have those videos so at least I can go back and review where I'm at on it. But yeah, very nice. May not be working right at the moment, at least not complete. It's got a solid foam fuel cell in it. But like I said, I know it was brand new. It had some dust and stuff up in the wick, but it was still in the box. But that's a danger you run into with these parks sometimes with, I don't know that for sure. Well, yeah, I would say that for sure because it looks like it was probably a black or blue screw because it bled off into that solid foam fuel cell. And that's what happens with those plastic screws. I've broken a ton of them. And it's really not easy to get out of there after you broke it. Haven't really figured out an effective way of doing that, at least without just the damage you can do to the threads. I'm usually, up to this point anyway, I haven't been patient enough to successfully pull one of those screws out of there. I don't know if you could use some sort of small easy out. That plastic would bite on it enough and not expand to the point that you get out into the thread, but I don't know. You might see one of these days. Professor's Garage says you haven't heard of a solid foam fuel cell yet. You never even heard of that from the Zippos? Something that Zippo used at one point, I think in the late 60s. Maybe even a little bit longer than that. Maybe early to mid 60s, but I think it's seems like they're normally talking like 1967, 1968, around in there. But I would certainly prefer the solid foam fuel cell to an insert filled with sawdust, like you get with some of the Bowers, like the Bowers number 10. Those got sawdust in them. So do some of the park lighters. Anyway, I've used a few of them that have a solid foam fuel cell, and they seem to hold the fuel just fine. I haven't seen that it seems like fuel just pours out of it, rather than, you know, when you fill up a lighter properly, you should be able to turn that upside down, and that material, the wadding material, whether it be a solid foam fuel cell or the cotton, it should hold it. It shouldn't all just immediately run down out of it just from the weight. If that's the case, you've got too much in there. And like I said, I've used a few, and they seem to have about the same fuel efficiency as any other material that you would put in a park. Now understand, a lot of these parks just have a wick that might just be that long. Might not even be quite that long. You know, as much as you want to complain sometimes with the way the Zippo inserts are packed these days, where they don't intersperse that wick throughout the insert throughout the tank in a zigzag manner. They just sort of shove it all in one place. At least they give you a full wick, where these parks, you're only getting at most the length from the top of the windscreen down to the bottom of the case. Not exceptionally giving of that resource anyway. But, you know, I think by that point, I'm sure it wasn't like that with the older, more quality built Park Sherman or Park Industries from the Springfield, Illinois era. So by the 60s and 70s, I think they were, you know, they were a sort of an economy version of the Zippo anyway. Are you talking about the dots on those two? Are they confusing, Professor? The 58, I don't remember. It's got a lot of dots on it, but I don't remember now where 64 falls. Is that with the straight up and down line yet, or are they both basically not have any dots? What kind of Zippo you use, Keith? What do you do with the, you have a pretty big collection? Do you use them all? You mentioned the two park lighters, and obviously you were interested in getting them working, so you're not the kind of guy that just puts them up on the shelf and doesn't care whether they work or not. Yeah, I don't smoke cigarettes, but I smoke something else. Or maybe I should say I don't smoke tobacco cigarettes. I gotcha. Yeah, it's there are definitely some nuances when it comes to dating them. I know that it's at the 1960 or 61 Slim. There's two different um, date codes that apply to that year. Same thing, I think in the late 70s, there's a year that there's two possible different date codes, and depending on which chart you're looking at, both those date codes may not be on that chart. Cool. I've got a Serenity Prayer um, Park Slim lighter, Keith. It's not in great shape, and I didn't pay much for it. I'll have to find it. Um, anyway, um, I think this one that I have is blue. One of those two-tone. The bottom case is blue and the top is silver. But yeah, I've seen a lot of different versions of the Serenity Prayer Zippo, and I've even seen a few different versions of the Serenity Prayer on park lighters. I'm sure there were others as well. Yeah, I've been there, Professor. It's definitely, like I was saying, it can be confusing, and I've never gone through and memorized. I kind of have a broad view or a broad overview. I think it's what 1973 or somewhere around there. 1973, I think, maybe, when they quit using, when they switched from the up and down lines to the diagonal lines. So you kind of get a vague idea of some of those periods. That one might be from the late 70s, like I'm pretty sure that 3 forward slashes on each side is 1976, because I've owned several 1976 lighters, including that Slim with the cannabis leaf, the etch and paint cannabis leaf. I also owned a CB operator. Keep your ears on, good buddy, with the antenna off the back of the car. That was 1976. That was one of the really first cool lighters that I found. That I bought it in a group of, it was 40, it seems like 42, 43 lighters, something like that, maybe a couple more, maybe 45. At a place out in Harrah, Oklahoma. I'd been out there looking for lighters, and I'd bought a Dunhill, the Dunhill service lighter. Is that the right name for the trench type lighter? Not the Fuse Z. That was the Dunhill windproof lighter. Yeah, I think the Dunhill service lighter. Anyway, I'd bought one of those out there and gone home, put fuel in it, and I think I'd paid like $10 for it, something like that. Maybe I paid him $20 for that and a cigarette case. It still had the box and everything. So anyway, I left my number with him, told him if he ran across any other lighters or somebody else wanted to sell lighters he wasn't wanting to buy, to give me a call. And he called me like the next day, said, "Hey, I forgot I had this box of Zippos back here." And he pulls out, my daughter and I go out there, and he comes out with literally a box full of them. And there were some that were in boxes, some weren't. That 1976 CB operator wasn't. but it's still, I don't remember what it sold for at the time. It seems like $50 or $60. It was a new lighter that, you know, just had kind of drawerware type stuff, high polished chrome. So obviously it had some scratches and stuff like that, but all the paint was there. It was a really nice lighter. And there were a bunch of others, and I ended up paying him $250 for all of it. And that was kind of my first big purchase, and that made me enough money to keep going a little bit further. And I ended up buying a lot of better and bigger collections and more valuable lighters, but that was a lot of lighters that I basically paid I don't know, maybe $6 or $7 a piece for, and pretty much every one of them in there sold for, well, I've never really sold much of anything for less than $15, but Zippos and stuff like that, I don't remember. Man, I'd have to go back and look. But anyway, I made money on all of them, and most of them made well over what I would normally consider my minimum margin. But I do forget too, I can't remember exactly. There were some times there early on when I just ran auctions, and so stuff would sell for lower than I would sell it for today, for sure. It's one of the reasons why I quit running everything in penny start auctions, because you know, things just fall between the cracks, and for whatever reason some things don't get the audience that others do, and there are good lighters all the time that sell for way below their actual value, just because not enough people are seeing it. Yeah, that's cool, Keith. That's a cool gift from your daughter. Very encouraging. I myself, Keith, haven't had a drink in well, since December 13th of 2016, so a little over 6 years. What's up, Azrael? Glad that you have joined us. Okay, Keith, you've got 13 in your collection, including the two park. Are the others all Zippos, or do you have several different types of lighters? Well, I do too, Keith, but you know, that helped me get off of the alcohol. I've written an article about that over on my website, and you know, it's not nearly as destructive a substance as alcohol is. Alcohol will destroy your life. Weed doesn't do that. Weed just makes you content and happy with whatever you happen to be doing. Are you talking about the like the printed graphics on the Zippo, Keith? What's up, Dylan? Azrael, yeah, that's unfortunate. I know some of those Asian countries, the penalty can be severe. Um, but it really, I put weed on par with caffeine. I don't think it's any more dangerous than caffeine. But caffeine can be very dangerous. I'm not saying that there's not circumstances where weed can be, but not anywhere the way it's been portrayed. Yeah, I would agree with you on that one, Keith. The printed graphics, I kind of, you know, my Bob Dylan Zippo, that's a printed graphic. Both sides of it, I think. I'm going to have to pay a little bit closer attention to that now when I make that video. What about this one? That's not a printed graphic, I don't believe. We talked about that lighter several times before. But I don't know, obviously because of the time, whatever, I think this was the, I don't know, mid-90s, I can't remember. But some people argue with you that there hadn't been any town and country Zippos since the late 60s. But I'm not so sure that this isn't at least what they would have been doing at that particular time, but this wouldn't be considered a town and country painted graphic. Anyway, that's not what I was actually trying to find. Yeah, I can't tell whether... No, I think that is an etch and fill, or I don't think that's a printed design either. So I'm not sure that I have any Zippos with printed graphics on them. Yeah, there you go, Neff. It's, you know, now if you put a bunch of drunk guys in a room and let them smoke a joint, then all kinds of bad stuff can happen. You put the two together. But if you keep the two substances separated, you're right. And I've been on both sides of that. The damage that can be done, not just over time, the damage you do to your body and your mind and your entire person, but yeah, you can really screw things up in a hurry in one night just by making some really foolish decisions. And that doesn't usually happen with weed. With weed, people tend to be a little bit more careful. Maybe they don't go out when they shouldn't go out. You know, it's just too complete. Like I said, I about lost my mind 15 years ago one morning because I was hungover and didn't eat and drank a bunch of coffee, and haven't really drank caffeinated coffee since then. The coffee that I drink when we all get together here every week is decaf, which really nowadays is more for just because of my heart health is why I stay away from the caffeine. But yeah, I quit drinking. I drank coffee every day of my life, and had one incident there where, I don't know, it kind of seemed like a panic attack. It seemed like I was going to die. And I didn't touch caffeine, at least coffee, caffeinated coffee, for a long time. And, you know, like I said, different substances can affect different people different ways. But I think to a large degree, the negative things that you see with marijuana are a result of a person going into the situation already scared or fearful. Because like I said, that's all that weed really does, is make you content with whatever you're doing. Once you realize that it doesn't have to lock you to the couch, you can get up and move around, then man, you can really accomplish some things while you're up and moving around. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling now. Well, from the things that I've read, Azrael, it does seem you don't necessarily have the same carcinogens present in marijuana smoke that you do in tobacco smoke. And maybe it's not even the tobacco. Maybe it's the additives that the tobacco companies have put in there that cause some of the problems. I don't know. But it doesn't seem like the research is there to suggest that you have the same incidence of cancer, lung cancer, and that sort of thing from marijuana smoke that you do from tobacco smoke. But anyway, I don't know that that's really been proven one way or the other. The Champ Austria is a pretty good one, uh, Keith, but it also has the same sort of spring system as a Park. That brute force pushing in against that leaf spring running along the back or mounted to the back of the insert. But again, I don't necessarily say that either one of those is really even that. A Zippo is pretty, um, it's pretty basic. So, I mean, yeah, it is well made, but I mean, I don't know, all of them take some damage over time. The steel Zippos from the early 50s, they're all corroded. You find a lot of those um, Champ lighters that have a leather or plastic faux leather cover on them. They're real corroded around those things. So I think maybe, different materials were used at different times. But yeah, I don't know. Do you really think that a Zippo is that much more quality than a Park? And if so, what about for the money that you have to put out for a Zippo compared to a Park? Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not going back to the. Um, I'm never going back to whiskey, but yeah, weed was certainly helpful in getting me off of it. It can be pretty scary when they start talking to you about withdrawal symptoms and you know a doctor telling you that you need to quit. You absolutely need to quit, but don't dare just go home and quit right now. For one, it's kind of a confusing message, especially for an alcoholic who all he wants to do is take another drink. But it's a scary thought that, all right, I've drank myself to the point that my body now needs this, and taking it away could put me in grave danger. Now, Mountain Dew is pretty high in caffeine, Professor. I'm pretty sure. And Barks is, I believe, the only root beer that has caffeine in it. Sometimes, if I have a weakness, and I haven't, I don't think I've done this since I quit drinking sugar, but I may have had a diet Dr. Pepper. I did have a diet Dr. Pepper. Um, so I will occasionally have some caffeine that way through a uh, through a soda, but it's even rarer nowadays since I don't consume sugar. I am streaming from Deep Deuce in Oklahoma City, Keith. Yeah, thank you, Professor. I appreciate that because I do tend to ramble from time to time. So if you guys get tired of hearing me talk about one thing, then steer me. I'll get back to the chat over here sooner or later. Where are you at, Keith? And should I already know that? I can't remember. Big Lake, Minnesota. Awesome. So that's not too far from where a professor's at in Montana, is it? Just as far north, I'm sure. I used to hear all kinds of things when I was growing up, Professor. They talked about menthol cigarettes having little shards of glass in them. I don't know if that was true or not, but there's certainly been additives, and I think that there's a good possibility that some of those additives were put there for their addictive qualities, but whether or not they are actually more carcinogenic, like I said, I don't know. I have read articles in the past, though, that seem to indicate that marijuana smoke at least did not pose the same risk. I have had some 3 barrels, Keith. I had a 3 barrel sterling silver lighter from the late 1940s. The hinge, or not the hinge, like you asked, it had a 3 barrel hinge. But the insert was not original to the lighter. The insert, I can't remember. I didn't know enough about dating inserts back at that time to even pay attention. But I sold that lighter for a good amount of money. It seems like about $450. And like I said, the insert wasn't even original to it. I bought it and a sterling silver Ronson Adonis at the same time. I think I paid about $100 for the two of them. And I made that back minimum on, may have even been more like 120 or 130 that I made on the Ronson Adonis. But I've had that 3 barrel. I had a 3 barrel with the initials JJC, which is the Admirable, I can't remember, Admiral, I think it was John Jocko Clark. I can't remember the first name for sure. You can look him up on Wikipedia. But I had several items from that one collection that had at least at one time belonged to him. They had his initials on him or on them, or they were military presentation lighters from the late 60s, early 1970s. You can go back and see videos on some of that stuff still. Maybe even most of that stuff. Some of my very earliest videos. Azrael says, what's Champ Lighter? There was a Champ Lighter, which is, I believe, an Arthur Dubsky design, made in Austria, the 1950s and 60s. Very similar to Park and Zippo. Had a lot of faux coverings like the Park lighters did. Flip top petrol lighters with a convertible windscreen is kind of the cool thing about them. Like I said, they use the same just brute force spring system like the Parks do. So you can see what I'm saying there, as opposed to a Zippo that doesn't take the wear and tear because, well, it's just not having that force put on it. That cam is made to give as the lighter closes and opens. So I don't have a Champ lighter here with me, but I would say Champ is one of the better quality vintage flip top lighters. But you know, there's really nothing wrong with the quality in a lot of the Japanese lighters. I think I understand what you're saying, Keith, but you know, they light just as often as a Zippo. Is it just the feel of it in your hand that you're saying you don't like? You don't feel like it feels, you don't feel the quality in it? It's not as quality made a piece of material, or what exactly is it that makes it not compare? Yeah, I agree with that statement too, Keith. Um, you know, compared to what alcohol did to me. I mean, I understand to those who are naive of using marijuana, um, you may not really, you may think the effects are more than they are, but once you've kind of got it in your system, the effects, I promise you, they just don't have the same, anywhere near the same effect as what alcohol can do to you. You can take the worst alcoholic that's got a tolerance like you wouldn't believe, and you can still give them enough to get them drunk out of their mind. It's really hard to do with somebody who is not THC naive. Wow. Sounds like you're a bigger root beer connoisseur than I am, Professor. At one point, when I quit drinking, I already said that I used weed to help me quit drinking, but I also got addicted to sugar at the same time, and I drank a lot of root beer. Um, so I've drank a few root beers myself, but nowhere near 40 plus. But yeah, I knew that Barks was at least among the ones that I had used and looked at the label on. I knew that it didn't have caffeine in it. That's impressive though, 40 plus root beers. I've tasted enough craft root beers that did not suit my taste to where I kind of stick to the ones that I liked. Mug's a good one. Yeah, is there a state in between you, or multiple states in between you guys? I'm not sure exactly. I've been to Wyoming, so I know where Montana's at, but I, uh, I haven't been. I think Minnesota is above Nebraska, but there may be another state in between there. Huh. That's an interesting thought, Professor. Did you look into that? I don't know if that's true or not. I know when it comes to growing weed, that you definitely need to know what you're doing to grow it to optimize the THC in it. From what I understand, that what used to be people using it as kids around here when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, were probably getting something with like 2 to 3% THC, where nowadays, if it's below 15, nobody wants it. So there might be some effect in that, or it may simply be because of the additives, like your daughter was saying. Yeah, I think that's actually nicotine stains, um, naphtha. I can remember when I went to work, uh, I'd been working for the post office up here in Oklahoma City on a casual basis from July of 1992, and then um, I did that for 2 or 3 years before I got on a career basis in Ada, Oklahoma. And one of the first things I remember after I got down there was the maintenance guy cleaning the basement break room, which used to, when I first went to work at the post office in Oklahoma City, you could still smoke in the building. It was a specific break room you had to smoke in, and they also would allow you to go outside and smoke, but they had places in the building where you could smoke. And apparently up into the early 90s, maybe the late 80s, but I think into the early 90s, they still had ashtrays out on the sorting machines. So while people were actually sorting the mail or sweeping mail off of a sorting machine or feeding it or keying it into another side of the machine. They could be smoking cigarettes while they were doing that. But anyway, I forgot where I was going there. That maintenance guy was cleaning the walls because you couldn't smoke anymore. By the time I went down to Ada, that was 96 or 95, 95, I think, 1995. You couldn't smoke in the building anymore. And they started taking stuff off the walls so you could, so they could clean that. And man, you wouldn't believe, you could see where everything, it was like every cigarette that had ever been smoked down there in that basement had left its mark. Pretty nasty stuff. Yeah, I've never replaced a pin in a hinge, Keith, and that's just kind of, I don't mind doing work on inserts because you got to do that to get them functional. But as far as doing something that might devalue a lighter by changing out a pin, that's just something I don't do. That's just now if I had one of my own here that needed that, I wouldn't have any problem with it. It's just something I haven't done as to this point. Um, if I was going to sell it, me putting a pin in it was going to devalue it. So I'd either let Zippo do that or leave that up to the prospective buyer. Just like, I got no problem in most lighters, especially if the wick isn't in good condition, especially if it's a used lighter, then changing out the wick, make sure that it's in working order. But I would never do that with, say, a Black Crackle Zippo. I've owned 3 World War II Black Crackle Zippos, and none of those were, I might have used one around here as I was working, but at no point did I ever have any illusions that I was going to keep one of those lighters. They were just too valuable to me for the money that I could get for them. And I think most collectors in a lighter like that would rather have the original wick, wadding. They're not going to be concerned so much whether it's working when they get it as is it original. So that's how I tend to leave things. But yes, I have seen, I don't know that I've watched ZF77's video about that, and that may even be over on his original channel, but I know he's got some of those kind of videos. That's one reason why I sent him that big lot. I think it was 9 or 10 Zippos that I sent him a couple of years ago. One of them he sent back to me. It's right here somewhere. Sent back to me with the artwork on it. But that's one reason why I sent him that group, is I posted those lighters for trade over on the DependableFlame.com Facebook page and hadn't really got any interest in the week or so, and then he hit me up, and so I thought, well, I'm just going to send them to him. He doesn't mind torquing around on them, and because he ends up, I'm sure when that phone call came through, so I unhooked the microphone and plugged it back in, but I didn't realize that the screen was I didn't realize that the screen was locked up as well. So like I said, I think I've got that fixed. You guys let me know. Yeah, I had to go in on the iPad that I am watching from. I had to go out and come back into the stream. Okay, cool. Glad you guys are back. Sorry. I need to figure out how I can do that. How I can block phone calls while I'm on here. NAFTA says he's heard Dr. Pepper called barbecue water before. Man, I got to tell you, Dr. Pepper is the most delicious soda. I love root beer too, and I didn't even realize it for years drinking Dr. Pepper that it had that fruity taste in there. Um, but yeah, there's something special about it. But I don't drink sugar anymore, so I'm gonna go back up here to where we were at and come back down. Azrael said earlier that his low key dream was to do a road trip across the U.S. with an old muscle car, and that's a noble idea to have, Azrael. That would be a cool thing. I haven't made a road trip all the way across the U.S. I traveled from Oklahoma City, or actually more precisely Midwest City, Oklahoma, up to Anacortes, Washington a few years ago. And I didn't do it in a muscle car, I did it in a Jeep Renegade. But I had a blast on that trip and would certainly enjoy doing that in a muscle car myself. You know, the first car I ever owned was a 1970 Mustang Fastback that my dad and I built together and pulled an engine, a 351 Cleveland engine out of a 1969 Ranchero and put it in there. And it was just an automatic transmission, but man, would it run! And my old man had plenty of other cars. I was thinking about that yesterday. There's an album at my mom's house with photos of several of the cars that he built and the cars that he raced at the drag strip in Tulsa and maybe somewhere around here as well. I can't remember. But I might have to do a video on some of those cars sometime. Yeah, I like the sound too, Keith, but I'm not as big a proponent of the sound as some people. I mean, okay, it's cool, but I don't know. I hear a lot of different tones to that click. Well, if it doesn't light on the first strike ever, then you might want to check into, I don't know, are you getting the spark you should out of it? Or maybe manicure your wick a little bit differently. But I've got plenty of Zippos that I could say the same thing about. They don't tend to want to light the first time. Spark seems weak. Okay, Keith, both of your parks are slim style. When you talk about the butane lighters and going back as far as the 60s, are you talking about refillable type butane lighters, Azrael, or the plastic disposable type butane? It seems like you told me before that the only lighters you were really able to get a hold of in your country were the disposable plastic type advertisement butane lighters. Am I off base on that? No, Park doesn't have that click sound for sure. Okay, and corrected me on my geography a little bit too. I thought that the Dakotas might be in there, but like I said, I'm kind of ignorant. Just like I'm really ignorant when it comes to the Northeast. Maybe I got a little bit better about the Southeast just because of how it's laid out from here. But once you get past Tennessee, I'm not even sure about that. So My geography's a little weak. Oh, cool, Professor. I'll have to check that out. I didn't know that you did root beer review videos. NAFTA mentions Weber's root beer from a stand in Tulsa. You know, I don't know if I've mentioned that before that I was born in Tulsa, NAFTA. I'm not a fan of Dad's root beer. I like A&W, and Barks is okay, except for the caffeine. But Dad's has a weird taste to it. Okay, Professor says he Googled it, and tobacco does naturally have at least some nicotine in it. Is 1919 another brand of root beer, Keith? Do you guys think that the Barks taste like cola to you because maybe it's so strong with the carbonation? I need some strong carbonation in a soda if I'm going to drink it though. I don't like it going flat too soon. Yeah, I already said I'm a fan of Dr. Pepper naphtha. However many flavors it takes them to get that mixture, man, it's perfect. Yeah, it is a little bit fruity, and I think that's the pomegranate or whatever. But a lot of people sort of think it tastes like Coke. I've never had the 1919, Keith. Professor says he greatly dislikes Dr. Pepper, but it's basically the only thing his mom drinks. Yeah, my daughter doesn't like it either. She's made fun of me. But man, I tell you, if you get an ice cold Dr. Pepper on a hot day, um, yeah, I love a good Dr. Pepper. But I would only drink the sugar-free version now, and preferably even caffeine-free. That's an interesting thought, Professor. He says that he read somewhere that the inventor of Dr. Pepper wanted to have it taste like soda shop smelled like. My dad told me that back in the day when Dr. Pepper first came out, they marketed it that you could drink it hot or cold. That people drank it like coffee, like sipping it hot. Did you say 25? Are you talking about 25,000? Was that a solid gold Zippo, Keith? Well, we might have storms later, naphtha. They did mention that here at sometime this afternoon. I might need to check into that before I walk over to vote. By the way, are you going to vote today, naphtha? I don't know if anybody else here in the room is an Okie, a fellow Okie, but we can go vote here in Oklahoma today. Oh yeah, yeah. There's some old butane. The first butane lighters had different ways of filling them. It wasn't like there was just a can. It was like the Ronsons with the blue tank. I don't think you can just fill those with the little pump cans that we use today. But I also saw a post a couple weeks ago over on the OTLS Facebook page. A dude named Tom O'Kee, who was posting one of the early Ronson butane lighters, and it looked, I can't remember exactly whether, it basically looked like a leather wrapped Princess, and it may have been a Princess, just a butane model. But it was the same fitment, everything looked the same, and I've run across a few of those. It had the blue fill screw on the bottom, and somebody that commented on that thread said that those particular lighters, that you had to take them back into a shop to be refilled. It's like taking it in to be repaired each time it needed to be refilled. It seems really an inconvenient thing to have to do just to refill your lighter. Sounds like NAFTA has had his fair share of root beer as well. I can't remember any of the names. It's probably a good thing because it may have just been my personal taste. But I've definitely had some that I didn't like. Like I said, Dad's one of the brand names that you would be more familiar with. I didn't like it at all. The Bricktown Brewery makes their own root beer, and it's pretty good. Well, maybe so. Being a Coca-Cola product, or maybe they're sharing part of trying to do things quicker, or maybe because of the way they're mixed. I don't know. I don't know exactly how most of those sodas are even made. What's up, David? Or should I call you by your real name? That always looks weird to me. We're talking about root beer right at the moment. I can remember when I came up to see you a few years ago, I was driving around one day looking for root beer. Good to know. I just mentioned a while ago because Azrael was saying that he would like to take a cross-country trip in a muscle car, and I was telling him I haven't exactly been across the country, but I did drive from Midwest City, Oklahoma to Anacortes, Washington, and that's who I was going to visit. You guys was my buddy Shane here, who has joined us in the chat. One of the grander adventures of my lifetime, and a really good time. Yeah, and it's Shane's a former Okie, so he's got a little bit of insight into what's going on here. And NAFTA and I were just talking about today being voting day for 820. Well, you guys are naming way more root beers than I'm familiar with. I'm definitely voting for it, but it's a little bit of a strange environment right now. I don't expect it to pass. I sure hope it does, but I don't expect it to. But I think it's the right thing to do simply for what it supposedly does in regard to prison sentences for people who are still in jail for things that many of us do, commonly and legally every day around here now. The strain on the resources, especially in rural areas, has really had I don't know. I think that the entire industry is kind of looked down upon because of the grow operations, the illegal grow operations that I guess are able to exist easier because they're hiding amongst the legal. That's the impression anyway, is that there are illegal grows all over the place that are draining resources from rural communities. But like I said, I'm going to vote yes, and I hope it passes, but we'll see. You guys remember the Ronson Whirlwind Imperial? Trying to remember who it was that told me about this lighter in the first place. I think it was Daniel Nieves. It was right after, and as a matter of fact, the very first of the longer videos when I first started publishing videos every day back in 2000 or 2020. What was the name of that? It was a Japanese made lighter that had a twist bottom filling system like this one. And Daniel had mentioned that in that the comment section to that video that reminded him of the Whirlwind Imperial, which had me on the lookout for one. So then when I acquired this one in it was in a pretty large lot of Ronson lighters, and at the same time I had bought a group of Evans lighters. Trying to remember, there were several different lots that I bought from that same auction house in that particular online estate sale. But when I put this thing in my hand, pulled it out of the box, it was brand new. But I didn't realize at the time the leather was so brittle that when it came to rest in my hand, a piece of the corner broke off. So I just decided to use it because I was already kind of enamored with that twist bottom system anyway. And it is a really good lighter, but it does seem to work much better. I used it every day. I carried it in my pocket for several months, just using a regular cheap eBay flint, or maybe it was an old Ronson flint. But with the Dunhill Blue in it, it's pretty much an every strike lighter, even if it's a little ugly for having lost its leather. Yeah, the thing that really bothers me, Shane, is what happens, I think that the legislature may take the result of this vote as a referendum on weed. And there's already whisperings out there that they're going to add qualifying conditions, which we don't have. So that's why I'm voting yes. I'm voting yes because I want them to leave our medical program alone. And I don't, any government, whether it's liberal, Republican, whatever, and even a lot of Democrats don't seem to be on board with legalizing weed like it should be. But they're all going to get what's theirs. They're all going to come after their part of it. But that's another thing that would supposedly, I think with 820, that would take the sales tax off of what the medical program that was created with 788, which we weren't supposed to be paying sales tax on it in the first place. I forget what was in 788. It's like a 7 or 8%. I think they called it an excise tax. And that was part of where they went wrong. They said that it would be taxed with that excise tax, but weren't specific enough to say no sales tax. The government getting involved certainly doesn't seem to help. It seems like these laws pass or work better when there's enough in them to pass. Like with 788, it had these trigger dates that they had to start issuing licenses. They had to start issuing cards. They had to have the program standing up within a certain time frame. All right, Keith, if you're still here, glad that you joined us today. Hit me up if you run into any more problems on any of your park lighters. Or send some pictures. I don't know if you're on the Discord. You can send pictures over on Facebook or, of course, email, text, whatever. If you want to send me pictures of any of those lighters we were talking about earlier. I don't know if you saw Shane is David Azrael. So I'm going to have to check out the forecast here when I get off the phone. Make sure that I can walk down here to the church. And I don't know, I probably got a mile walk ahead of me and then a mile back to go vote. But that'll be fun. And I can light something up on my way over there. Maybe even on my way back. Did you guys see the ashtray video last week? It's kind of funny to me sometimes the views that a lighter video will get as opposed to an ashtray video. Definitely the ashtray videos take a dip. They're not as popular as the lighter videos. Here's another ashtray. I don't know if I've ever had this one in a video before. It's been on the work surface as I was working, especially back when I very first started. But this ashtray has spent a lot of time in my vehicle over the last few years. But brought it in, I don't know, a while back, found it in there yesterday. But this is really good because it has a wide base. Even sitting on my dash, it didn't roll around. But I don't know, it's kind of modular looking. I'm kind of curious if did it belong in something else. It kind of looks to me like it was made to like set into a slot or something. Maybe not. It's aluminum construction. You can see where that aluminum was bent. I don't know, I guess that was, they pound this part of it out, or was it pressed? But you can see where those were just ears that were cut out of there that are probably a machine that presses it into that shape. What do you mean, Azrael? Nothing can really be shown. Like lighting it up and using it? Because I put stuff in them all the time that, um, isn't lit. Trying to demonstrate how the rests work. And I've told you guys before I don't smoke tobacco cigarettes. But it doesn't mean that there aren't tobacco cigarettes around the house. So, Professor, you say you were eyeing it, but does it look familiar to you? This is one of those ashtrays. I know I mentioned, I don't know, remember if that was a video or an article that I wrote, but I mentioned a while back that some of the first items in my collection were things that my mother gave me that had belonged to my grandmother. And this is one of them. Where is that other? This isn't all super organized, or really even organized at all. I don't know what I did with it, but I've got a portable ashtray that slides out. It's red crackle. It has some kind of emblem on it, maybe advertised. That belonged to my grandmother as well. But this one, there were three of them. The other one was a Holiday Inn glass ashtray. And that one's still over at the place in Mesta Park, so it definitely won't be in the video. And I can't get all this stuff. I've talked about wanting to get all this stuff in the shot. I'm actually just trying to get all the lighters because the ashtrays definitely won't fit. But I don't know, this kind of reminded me of something that some of the machines that I worked on at the post office, where they talked about them having ashtrays that slid in or clipped on. It looked like it was made to, like maybe it was part of a bigger unit. Maybe it's just me. By the guy who made it. Yeah, there, you're probably right. That's probably a good point, Azrael. And it does, at first that the actual ash reservoir here looked pretty uniform, but if you look down on it, it's definitely got some irregularity to it. It's not a perfect circle, but lightweight, and it's got rests on each side, and it's been a good functional ashtray for me. Yeah, I don't think they attach the holders. I think it doesn't look like it's like, I don't know what you would do to attach aluminum. Braze it maybe. That looks like it was simply, kind of like folding a box to put it together. It came off the same piece, because you can see there's no seam, or I mean, it's kind of like an open seam. I would, if I found another one of these in a antique mall, flea market, whatever, the kind of places that I look for lighters, and it had a $5 price tag on it, I'd definitely buy another one. So you think that you think it was something that was like mass produced, Shane, or is it something that somebody could have done with like some kind of hand tool that was made to press these rests, or are you talking about some kind of big mechanical machine that pressed this entire bowl out? Yeah, Israel, it was definitely folded. Definitely folded, and then these rests apparently uh, pressed into place. And this, like I said, this has had heavy use, but man, that I think that aluminum is kind of hard to clean some of that that buildup than it is with a glass ashtray. Interesting. Well, I would like to know if these were mass produced, and maybe it didn't have a wider purpose. Maybe it was just a cheap ashtray. But it's really, functional, utilitarian type design, and like I said, it would slide a little bit, but it's got a good base on it. Interesting. I'm not sure what you mean when you said the. Yeah, I've said many times in my videos, Azrael, that I'm not an expert on metals, and that's a fact. I am certain that this is aluminum, but if Shane hadn't been here to clue me in on exactly how it was, I mean, I'm sure that looks like. I mean, I've seen machines that build or bend big pieces of steel, and so I know that there's all kinds of. I'm trying to remember what. I don't know if I saw that on a reality show or a documentary. But you can bend really thick, heavy metals with the right machinery, but a light, thin metal like this aluminum doesn't look like it would take too much. That's why I thought maybe it wouldn't. And especially when you look at maybe it's just been bent up a little bit with use, but it's not like perfectly circular. So like I said, it made me think maybe it was maybe more crudely made than some big piece of machinery. Yeah, that does kind of make sense. That I hadn't thought about like an ashtray stand. I'd been thinking more like in like on a train or, but yeah, something like that in the lobby. You might be right. I don't know about that design. Would you call that an Art Deco design? With the aluminum, I think it's probably from the late 40s or 50s. Anyway, really cool ashtray that's part of my collection and part of the stuff that I use. And like I said, it belonged to my grandmother at some point. I remember my grandmother smoking a lot when I was growing up. She always kept her cigarettes and her Bic lighter in like a little woven tapestry looking little case that clipped on the top with I think we may have, well, maybe not. My stream locked up here, so I had to reboot what I was looking at. So you guys let me know if you can't hear me now. Anyway, I think I'm about to reach into my battery on this new phone. That's what it was giving me, was a warning. So approaching 2 hours anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye until next week so that I can finish up the work I need to do here, make some videos, and walk down and cast my vote. Yeah, I'll do that, Shane. Maybe a few here. I got a couple things I need to do. And like I said, I need to look at the forecast as well, make sure that I'm not going to get myself wet on the way or over or the way back. Yeah, it definitely has some irregularities to it, Azrael. I appreciate all you guys stopping in today, and miss the folks that we've missed. Shaun, if you're watching this later, I got all these lighters out for you, and I'm going to be making that video of the entire collection. Hopefully today. If not today, if I can get it made today, then it'll be up in the morning. Otherwise, it might be a little bit of time. My priority right at the moment is on the website, but I'm still trying to publish those daily videos as often as I can. Hello, Eastwa. I was about to say, mention missing Shaun, but we missed you as well. But glad that you've been able to join us here in the last minute. I've been catching your videos over on TikTok and appreciating that. You guys need to make sure and get over and check him out before all the governments make TikTok illegal. But either way, I'm sure that Eastwa is going to keep pumping out some good content, regardless of what platform we got to go to find it. But I appreciate talking to you guys, and like I said, if you're in Oklahoma today, get out and vote, and hopefully that goes the right way. But I will talk to you guys again next week. Until next time.